Okay. Good afternoon. So this is sort of a crash course for all those who haven't catch up or caught up with package tracer. So I'm going to be taking you through basically package tracer. Just a minute. Right, I've just shared my screen. So basically, I'm going to be taking you through packet tracer from. These are some of the labs that we have. So for this video, I'm going to be summarizing, I think, from 105 kusvika pa 2.76, introducing you to what packet tracer is and my basic configurations that unokwanisa kuita. All of them included in those labs from 105 to 2.76. All right, so I've just started the application, your packet tracer. We are sort of going to go freestyle instead of following my labs at the. But still, everything I'll be explaining in summarizes all of my labs are required kusvika ku 2.76. Right. So to pin on packet tracer, I think the first thing is to take you through let's start with this bottom toolbar. Bottom toolbar, we my networking devices. Here we have my routers. You can drag them, you can move them with your screen, you can delete them like this. Pane sorry. We can delete them. Uh we have here my networking devices, also routers, we have my switches here. We can move them as well. We have my apps. We won't be using these ones for now. Here we have my end devices here, and open my PCs. So we can drag my PCs to my side here. We have also let me drag another switch because we'll be using this. We have also what are these components? Yeah, I think we won't be using these much, but I think the last one I want to show is the connections. The connections, these are the media types we have. This one is automatic. Kanimena Kapetanga. This is for automatic selection in media. So you can just come here and connection yako is done automatically. But for learning purposes, I won't be recommending that. I'll be recommending you use Asiri Automatic so that you learn to identify which type of media to use from connections, what type of media to use between PC and switch. What is that? So we have here copper straight through. Type of media to use between switch and another switch. What do we have here? We have crossover. Then for PC to switch again, we also have straight through. So don't use my connections because I think for learning purposes, it won't be good for you. So learn and understand what type of media to use on different types of connections. Right. So next thing, going around packet tracer, we also have this physical mode. Physical mode, you see, I think it draws you closer to reality. Like ma routers anenge akamira sei, mureka anenge akapinda sei, ma connections anenge akamira sei. I think you have a couple of labs that will be showing you that. This one unfortunately won't, but if you go through my labs ESA from 105 to 276, you definitely encounter one. It will show the physical side of things instead of logical. Logical, it looks like this, simple. Physical, it draws you much closer to reality. How are the devices actually being connected? What do they look like? Between connections between intercities as well. All right. So for this one, we've investigated the bottom toolbar. In Panama navigation is a selection. You can search. You can zoom in. I think that's for you. Connect the packet tracer yako kubata bata. Don't be afraid to kubata bata. Go around packet tracer yako yes, and learn to navigate around it. Right. So the next thing, I think this is really explained by first packet tracer 1.05. Then we go to packet tracer 2.37. You can navigate iOS. I think the only thing I will take from that is console, connecting console and establishing the terminal session. So what we have here, we have our two PCs and two switches. We want to make our basic configurations. How do we do that? Right. To connect to our switch, we have what we call the console. Two ways actually, the physical one and the one in the virtual. So we have the console for the virtual connect for the physical connection, and we have SSH telnet for the virtual connections. Right. So for the first one, we're going to be using the console. So we go select the console cable here, place up a PC here is connected to the port, it's RS232 to the connector here to the connect up a console. So we have connected console here to our port. That means we can now be able to access switch radio if we want to configure it. So I'm going to connect two my consoles to our two switches. Right. So that's basically how you connect console yako. They are for getting access to the switch. Because how do you configure the switch? Or even the router, if we had the router there, how do you configure it? You need access to it, and how you get access is either you get access through the console or through telnet SSH through those virtual lines. Right. Now to establish connection using console, unayapa PC pako panapa, you come to the desktop, navigate through. There are a couple of things you open up. IP configuration, your some IP address, ema PCs edu. We have the terminal session doing no connector to console, as well as SSH. We have the command prompt. Inokwenza CMD PC yako. But for now, we're going to be using the terminal session. You just go and you click OK, and voila. Tapping down switch redu, on the switch here. This is the proper way of configuring switch redu. There is a shortcut though. You can directly per switch, end up a CLI pan up, then voila, wapin switch. But this one, I don't recommend it for learning purposes as well, because you'll be fooled with switch, you're not going to direct per switch or tango configure. But in reality, no, you have to go via the terminal session via the console. Right. So now tapping on switch may do 2. What's that? 2.37 navigating the iOS done. Now, to pick up I think user privilege exec modes, my modes edu. Tapping on switch, let me use this one, Russia white so that we can see. Tapping on switch, what we have, tishtaka kupinda, irushiwa neka arrow, inonzi user exec mode. Mugeta manos edu chapter 2, I think this is being showed. This is the user exec mode. And tikaisa enable, if we type enable, we go straight through to the privileged exec mode. Mamo's edu in chapter 2 reads, then tikaisa configure terminal configure terminal. So at configuration mode, as we can see, in a config here. This is the configuration mode. Now we have other sub configuration modes. We have the line configuration mode. I think it can be tested by line console 0. Here, the mode changes, sub configuration line. We also have another one, interfaces. Let me see, right, interfaces. Interface, for example, we can go with fast Ethernet 0.1. Config IF. This is a sub configuration for the interfaces. All right. So basically, this summarizes, I think, the beginning of chapter 2 of my notes. Discuss some more modes. So we have the user here. We're at the user exec mode. Then we switched with enable to cap in a hashtag here. See the privilege exec mode. Then to configure terminal to adapt config. Where is config here? I no longer see it. Config mode E. Then get a config E. Configuration mode. Then take in the config line. That's the sub configuration year line. Then we have another sub configuration year interface here. So basically, these are the modes that we are going to be using. You'll be navigating through these modes for some configurations. So as you can as you read my notes, you see the commands or things that you can actually do in the user exec mode, this one, they're very limited. We can check, I think we can check, let me go back. We can check using the question mark. There's a question mark here. These are only the commands that we can have in the user exec mode. As you can see, they are limited, no configuration commands there. Then if you go to the switch, the privilege exec mode, there's a question mark as well. You can see the commands are limited as well, but I think they are much more than the ones at by user exec. These commands, very limited configurations, limited changes to what the switch does. Then tikapinda ku configuration mode. Here we have quite a lot of commands, and these allow us to change my settings arpa router redu or arpa switch redu. For example, I can change the host name using this command, right? I can go into the sub configuration modes and not change my IP addresses, but all of them, they are coming from the global configuration mode. Right. Now we have summarized my modes edu, and we've discussed my commands arimo, some limited for user and privilege, and some changing for the ones that are in global configuration. Rekatiende pa packet tracer 2.55, configuring initial switch settings. All right. Initial switch settings, what you need to know is, to switch radio network, what do we need to change? What is needed to switch to function? Right? What is needed? Basically, it's nothing. Switch ready can function. It is now configure anything. As long as you got some network on, it can function. But there are what we call initial switch configurations. For example, name. You might need to identify switch over the network. Not pass it around whatever. Right? So you can configure the name. You might need to secure my ports a switch so you can secure my ports. But it doesn't mean switch ring will function and it's not secure. No, it functions without being secured, without being configured the host name, without doing anything. But we need those initial switch configurations so that one, we can identify switch ready in the network. Two, we can have security per switch ready. From console, we secure console, we secure my virtual lines, we secure the privilege exec mode, quite a number of things that we can do for the initial switch configurations. Right. So the first thing usatwa waita any configurations might be to verify the current running configurations for switch radio. And we use the show run, show, let me type in full, show running configurations in the privilege exec mode. And voila, we can see these are our running configurations. These are our settings in the switch before we have configured anything. So what we have, I think you can notice the host name, the name of the switch is switch, right? I think that's one thing to notice. We have different interfaces here. Fast Ethernet from 0 to 24. We also have the Giga Ethernet port here, interface. We also have no IP address configured for the interface VLAN 1. I think we'll discuss that later. We also have our line virtual lines here, our virtual lines here, and our console here. All right, these are the initial running configurations. These are the current running configurations for switch radio. Now, tamaona, we can now change them to esa edu isusu to configure system redu to esa my password. As I can see, there are no passwords configured there. All right. So the first thing that we are going to do, we go to the configure terminal and we're going to configure the host name. So ndika pull out my notes angle. This is how we configure the host name here. Config terminal. No. Where is the host name? Here. Config terminal, command host name, what's name the host name rako, and you are done for this one. So the command for changing the host name, very simple. I go back to packet tracer yango. Right, and I configure my host name, switch SW1. I've changed my host name. So you can see switch language here is already changed from switch name is changed from switch to SW1. So we successfully configured our host name. First thing. Then the next thing, let's follow here. Password. We configure the line console password. Right. The line console password will be used to log the user exec mode. User exec mode. A line console password, the commands, I've just shown the commands here. Then we go to some commands here. In the configuration mode, we go to line console 0 tupinda command password twesa password yedu. I just want to put password against HHP01. HHP01. This is our password. Don't forget, log in. Without login, this password will not work. Voila, we have our login there, right? And that's it. And if I exit and I go to the user exec, I'll be prompted a password. This is the password that is in the line console. HHP01. User exec tapinda, privilege tapinda, configure terminal tapinda. So we have successfully configured password yedu iyo yokutanga yepa line console. Then we go to another password which secures the privilege exec access. Right, how do we do that? Tumeshansa secret, the command secret, enable secret. Right, from the global configuration, we go with enable secret. Right, tracer password yedu HHP02. Voila, we are done. We have secured the privilege exec access. So if I go with exit here, I start again. So I'm in the user exec, I'm being prompted for the password HHP01. This is the user exec password. The line console, then enable. I'm being prompted another password again. Enjoy a global configuration mode. In City, we are locking the user, the privilege exec access. Right, this is HHP02. Voila. Config terminal. Right. Another thing, to look my visual lines edu. My visual lines edu, these ones. Do not access to remote connection ku switch yedu using either telnet or SSH. Ukasesa password munhu akangoita IP address switch yako anokwanisa kuaccessa switch yako remotely. But with the password, let's say I want an IP address, you or she will also need the password kuti akwanise configure switch yako remotely. Right. So we have, these are the commands for virtual lines 0 to 15. So we have line VTY 0 to 15. 015. What does 015 mean? 015 basically means there are line 0 for connection, line 1, line 2, line 3, up to line 15. So constructions of more connections. So depending on you choose a line rate, you can use from line 0 up to line 15. So we're just going to log all my lines so that your line around go choose a ring and a password at the end of the day. So these are our lines. We log in, we go to the sub configuration line, line sub configuration mode, press a password yedu. Our password will be HHP03. Don't forget log in, and voila, we have successfully configured password yedu for my virtual lines. All right, what's next? These are the initial switch settings. All right, test a password here. We now have here encrypt the passwords. As you will see, there is a show run to show the now the current configurations, run configurations repair switch redo. You will see we have successfully changed the host name here. It's now SW1. All right. What else? We now have here a password. HHP01 for the line console, looking the user exec mode. We now have a password here. HHP03 looking the virtual lines. All right. We also have a password which is HHP2. Okay, it's secret. HHP02, it's a secret password. It was already encrypted. But back to the point of encryption, you see that our passwords, which were not encrypted, this one, suppose muna pinda muswitch mako over at show run configurations, anokwanisa kuona kuti password yangu HHP01. It's in plain text. We need to change that. How do we change that? Ndo patinoshandisa encryption. We go into the global configuration mode, password service encryption. Password. Let me see. What's the command? Service encryption password. Right, service password encryption. So it's service password encryption. And voila. If we go and then have show run again, you see now all our passwords will be encrypted. This one is encrypted. This one is encrypted. It's no longer HHP010203. This one is encrypted as well. This one is encrypted. So that's the command service password encryption, which does that. All right. To dig my commands edu show run configuration, we've shown that we have the banner. Banner. Why have the banner? Banners can be important part of legal process in the event that someone is prosecuted for breaking into the device. Right, banner is sort of beware of the dog message kanoiswa pa switch rero. Kuratidza kuti kuudza vanhu kuti pane imbwa apa, don't approach. So banner redu rinoiswa in the global configuration mode here. Banner message of the day. Right, you put hashtag oisa message yako, no in caps, no trace, no trespassing. I think that's enough. There is our banner. If I go back to the beginning of my Monzi Edu to the user exec, exit here. Right. There we have our banner at the top, right at the top. The moment you go pindam switch, the moment you skapa gate, you see your beware of the dogs. Here you don't know trespassing. Kana usiri muridzi weswitch, kana usingabvumirwi kupinda muswitch, kana usiri network administrator anokwanisa kuita access to the switch, usapinde. That's why we have the banner message of the day right there. Right. So to pin switch medu, now turn my passwords. HHP01 for the first one, enable HHP02 for the second one, config T. Right. What is the next? Right, taisa banner redu, then we have to save. After you've configured my initial configurations, you need to save them. Whilst my configurations up, but they were being saved in what we call the RAM, the random access memory. Right, the random access memory. So the random access memory, that memory is volatile. I think if you go through the nodes, if you switch off router or switch after you haven't saved your configurations in what we call the NVRAM, pauno restart switch rako, my configurations they disappear because anenge asinosevwa, anenge ari volatile. If I go to show run here, anobuda just because they are being saved somewhere in the RAM. But we have to save them in the NVRAM so that patinoita reboot switch redu, my current configurations after rebooting anenge ari ma settings atinenge takaisa isusu pa switch redu. So to save, we have copy run. I think we go to copy running configurations to start configurations. Voila. File name, startup config, yes, and we have saved our configurations. After we've saved our configurations, we are done with the initial switch configuration. Right. To end up 2.76, implementing basic connectivity. We'll move to something else. Initial switch configuration is done. Taresa basic connectivity. right? Basic connectivity here, we're going to configure my PCs add with IP addresses. We're also going to configure our switches with the virtual interface with what we call the SVI, which is used for managing the ports and the VLANs. Right. Let's start with configuring PCs add. For our network to function, they need to have what we call my IP addresses. Those are the things that identify our devices in a network. Without my IP addresses, we don't know to receive our message. So to configure our IP addresses, our PCs needs IP addresses. Our switches needs IP addresses so that we can communicate with the switch remotely. Our routers, the interfaces, also need IP addresses. But for this exercise, we're just going to configure my IP addresses here on the PCs and on the switches. All right, to configure on the PCs, we go to IP configuration. All right, I'm going to use 2.76. Let me use this addressing table right there. I'm going to be using these addresses. So we have for PC1, we have 192. I'm going to copy this. All right, 192. Okay, let me do this. We have this one, 192 for PC1. So we're going to, for this PC, we're going to have 192.168.1.1. Subnet mask, pana propagation square IP, 255.255.0 is the same. Right, we successfully configured an IP address for our PC 0 here. Then we go to this PC, the next PC, desktop, IP config, to the next one, 168.1.2. Same subnet mask. So we are done with this one. Then we go to our switch. Right, open them switch made to configure the SVI. To configure the SVI, we go to interface VLAN 1, configure terminal, we go to interface VLAN 1. In this interface, and open for IP address, yes, switch radio. And our IP address, we go with the IP address, that's the command, 192, the IP address, 168.1.253, and the subnet mask, 255.255.255.0. Done. After we're done, next IP address here, we activate the link with no shut. Voila, our interface VLAN is up. Right, to enter on another switch, we do the same thing. This one, I don't configure my initial settings, no password. So this is config T interface VLAN 1 IP address. What's the IP address for the 254? This is 192.168.1.254.255.255. That's the mask. 255.0. Then we have no shut to activate the link. Voila. And we have successfully configured. To check if in our switches now have IP addresses, we use our show commands. So for this one, we have show run. Because I show run here, we can see here. Where are we in Africa? Here. This is the IP address that I configure here. Okay, on interface VLAN 1. All right. Then as well as here, because I show run here, we can see this is the IP address we have configured right there. After to configure our PCs and our switches, we can check connectivity between, let's start with our two PCs. Checking connectivity between our two PCs, Nushansa command known as ping. You will learn a lot about ping as we go. Ping, what's the IP address here? PC or ping PC1. This is our PC. Yeah, to ping 192.168.1.2. Because ping here, we can see our ping is successful. Whereas we have basic connection between our two devices, this PC1 and PC2. So voila, basically this is introduction to packet tracer actually. To learn more, I think you need to play around with the packet tracer as you go through my labs. I've shown you my labs ASA, these labs. You are the one who is supposed to go through all these labs with the ASI. But once you've mastered dragging around my PCs, dragging around my routers, or some connections are correct. For this one, or some connections are correct. Once you've mastered that, you can master my initial switch configurations, initial router configurations, gonna some IP addresses, then that is it. You are done with packet trace. So I think for this lesson, we are done. Thank you very much.